Hello. It's Holly Rustick here with Grant Writing and Funding, and I'm really excited to bring this presentation to you today. And thank you, Brian, for allowing me to do this as a pre-recorded since if you don't know where I live on the island of Guam, which is about 15 hours ahead of Central Standard Time. All right, so I appreciate this and give you the opportunity also to pause as you go along, take some screenshots. There are some great nuggets in this presentation today, believe you me. All right, so what is this presentation? It's about repurposing your grant into other funding assets to diversify your funding during any administration. And we're going to talk about some spicy things today and what's actually going on and how you can still get grants and funding for the causes that you believe in, for the nonprofits or organizations that you work at, or if you're a freelance grant writer or consultant, the ones you work with, right? So this is also brought to you from the Freelance Grant Writer Academy, our signature program. All right, so before we get started here, I also just want to give a big dedication to Sabrina Walker Hernandez. She reached out to me several months ago and she was like, Holly, can you be a part of this Fund the Future series? And of course I said yes to Sabrina. Unfortunately, she has passed away, so this is a dedication to Sabrina for all of her efforts in the nonprofit sector. She is an amazing individual and just brought so much light to the sector. So thank you, Sabrina. All right, so let's get into it. What do we have for you today? We're going to talk about why you think nonprofits aren't hiring grant writers right now. We're going to talk about some mindset behind that. We're also going to talk about my 3 strategies for funding assets. You might not even know what the heck I'm talking about. We're going to break that down today. We're going to be talking about a master grant application. We're going to be talking about how you can think about getting results for your clients in 2025 and beyond. And then we're going to talk about how you actually develop funding assets, how you can weight them, how you can price them, and how you can weave them into your contracts. And of course, if you're listening to this and you're like, but Holly, I'm just thinking about becoming a grant writer, I'm not a freelancer yet, is this presentation for me? Yes, it's still very beneficial. Or if you're like, Holly, I work as a grant writer inside a nonprofit, is this still for me? Yes, right? It's very timely. So make sure that you do. And if you're a seasoned freelancer and you're like, but I'm still getting clients, is this still for you? Yes, this is still for you. Okay. And this is a different way on how you can kind of look at grants, how you can look at funding, and it overall will apply to you all. Okay. We're also going to talk about some grant writing and freelance resources for you too. And we have one before we get started. And this is in your swag bag that we have. So make sure that you grab that. And then this is a QR code. So if you want to pause this and use your phone, to links for all of our resources, or a lot of them. Okay. So are you ready to get started? All right. So let's get into this. Okay. This is what you want. Let's talk about what you want. To get your clients, or if you're working at an organization or your future job as a grant writer, right? To get them results and grow your grant writing portfolio, right? We all love getting grant wins. Let's be real. It is the fuzzies and all of the things. And we all get grant rejection if you're a grant writer, okay? It's a part of it. And we know that once we start growing our results, getting results, growing our portfolio, that we also, start getting more confidence behind what we're doing. If you're a freelance grant writer, you start marketing more, you start having more referrals and word of mouth and all of that, right? But there's that messy middle. There's the messy middle. There's the beginning, right? So, but overall, you're like, that's what I want. That's what I want, okay? And here's some other things that fall under that line. You want confidence in your grant writing skills, right? You actually want to have the confidence. You want diversified ways to get funding for your clients. Maybe you're feeling the weight of grants right now in 2025 and you're like, ooh, I'm seeing a lot of priorities change. Those grants I used to write just aren't getting funded and all of the things. And you're just like, are there other ways that don't fall too far outside of my experience or my scope that I can still deliver to my clients? Maybe you haven't even thought of that yet. And you're like, should I burn my grant writing business to the ground? Let's be real, right? Let's talk real. I said I'm going to talk spicy today. And you want to get funding for your clients no matter what the administration is, no matter what's going on, all the external threats out there, right? No matter what's going on, you're like, I still want to be able to get grants and still be able to get funding. You also want to be the go-to grant writer in your community, in your cause area, potentially, if you have national or global clients, maybe you're focusing in a cause area. You really want to be that person that people go to. You want to have that portfolio. And if you are just thinking about freelancing, you want to sell your grant writing services easily, or if you are doing it, you want to have like less friction when you're selling your services. And maybe this year you experience some new friction because everything with federal grants going on in 2025. If you're in the United States, like there's some things that are going on and you're just like, now I'm having internal friction because I have my own thoughts about everything that's going on. And I also have external friction because of just the things that I'm hearing. So now if I go into a sales call, there's new objections or new questions, and I just haven't really figured out how to respond to that, right? How to answer those. So there's a lot that you want to feel more at ease with your sales as you move forward. And in the beginning of the year, maybe you were just spinning and you just didn't know how to answer anything. And now maybe you're getting a little bit level set. Your nervous system is settling. You're starting to see what's falling out. There's more federal grants coming out, all of the things, but you still don't know how to respond and you want to have that ease. Okay. You want to write grants that get funded. Let's be real, right? Overall, you want a skill that helps causes get funded and that pays you. That is a typo there. Okay, so if you really think, I think every webinar I ever do, every presentation, I'm always like, and there's the typo. Okay, so you're really looking at that. And even if you're not a grant writer yet and you're just thinking about it, I also don't want to scare you, right? But I'm also talking real today. And I'm like, hey, grant writers, like, let's talk. And I also want you to understand, like, it's not like there's light. There's light at the end of the tunnel here. Okay, so follow along, keep following along. All right. $46 million of funding for direct clients and financial security and flexibility for my life is what I have personally secured for my company. Now, the students I have trained have secured way more money than that. But altogether, just from me, 46 million, right? So I'm going to actually take you on your journey instead of just doing the one page where I tell you a little bit about me and give you like my bio and a snapshot. I'm actually going to walk you through my journey of the last 20 years of being a grant writer, because I have like I have a reason. So wait for it. Wait for it. That relates to you. It's not just all about me, but I do want to like explain, because I think it'll give you some context to everything I'm building in this presentation. My journey in grant writing. So 20 years ago is when I started writing grants, and 2005, and I first learned grant writing in Indonesia, of all places, and that was after the Aceh tsunami. For those of you who remember, large tsunami, right? Wiped out a large area in Malabo where I was. It was like the second worst hit place after Aceh and Banda Aceh. And I just kind of did it. And if you guys know me, you kind of know my story a little bit, but I did it basically without really realizing I was even writing grants. It was just, I was in the community. We were at a very like new nonprofit NGO, not with like a UN one, like we were in the community, and the UN ones were kind of like more with their armored cars and all of the things, and very separated from community in many ways. And because I got to know the people, I was learning the language, I was taking a sport, a martial art there, and we were working with kids and just really hands-on. And they started talking to me, of course, and saying, hey, one of my friends, and she was actually the teacher for the martial art as well. And she was saying, I had what she did for a business as well as what she had before the tsunami was like one of those mobile carts where she sold like water and snacks and that sort of thing. And that provided her good money. The problem was the tsunami came in and it wiped away all of her stock, all of it, her inventory, her cart, right? So she's like, I really just need like some startup money so I can buy the cart again. I can buy my first batch of inventory and then I can make money and then it can be sustainable. So she wanted to ask for money from these United Nation organizations, but it was complicated. She didn't really know how to go about it, all of the things. So I volunteered to help, right, and get that first funding for her. So that's how, and I didn't even realize what I was doing. I was just like, I'm going to help somebody and connect what I see resources here with somebody here. And I really feel like that liaison. After I did it and I started learning like, oh, this is actually like a thing. This is a thing. I think I found my thing. Like I like this. So after my contract was over at that NGO in 2006 to 7, I went to a virtual grant. And like this is back in the day. Like for those of you who have just been like online with your businesses since COVID, like this was way before COVID. Like this is before smartphones. This is like when Facebook was just getting out. I think it released in sometime around then, maybe a couple of years before that, MySpace era. Okay, and I was working at a virtual grant writing firm outside of DC. And that's where I actually got trained properly in like, oh, there's a formula to grant writing, there's all these things, there's processes, there's ways that you can bring on clients with packages and all of these things. And it was like, oh, it clicked so much. And we had clients. I mean, my load and I was hired as an employee originally, and I had like probably 13 or 14 clients, right? Like it was a lot. It was a heavy load, but I loved what I did. I thought it was so cool. But I also wanted to travel more. So I actually took a job as a teacher in 2007 and 8 in Kuwait, and my mom was over there and all of the things. You might be like, that's bizarre, but if you knew the way I grew up, I moved a lot. But then I said, hey, and I talked to my boss and I said, I love what I'm doing. And he loved the work that I did. But I said, I want this to be more flexible. So I actually talked him in to letting me be a freelancer before I even knew, once again, what that term was. I was just like, we're doing virtual work anyways. And we didn't even call it virtual work because that wasn't like a thing even back then. It was like, don't have clients in our city anyways, and we're doing it all online. So what does it matter where I am? I get the deliverables done, I can do the thing, whatever, and just pay me per hour. And then you actually save some money because of the benefits, da, 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 la, 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 right? All of the things. And I was like, then I can help pay for my schooling because I was going to save up to do my master's as you'll see soon after. So we worked that out. Amazing. And then I did teach for a year in Kuwait, had a wonderful time, and then I freelanced on the side. And even back then, I remember and I'm going into this big story. I don't know. I'm in a story mood. I'm in a story mood, so I hope you're enjoying it. Then I met, which is very nice to see, like full circle. I didn't meet her, but I took her online course, Dr. Bev Browning. She is another speaker in this series, so I'm super excited. And I took her advanced grant writing class on Ed2Go, and I think she still even has courses on Ed2Go. But it was back in the day. It wasn't online where you get these nice videos and all of the things. It was literally, I had to use my phone to call in to listen to the recording. Like that's how it was done. And I was like, this is great. I got a lot out of it so I could hear her voice, like all of the things. Thought it was fantastic. And I was still freelancing. I was just like, I just want to continue to grow in this. I really enjoy doing this, all of the things. And I never even really thought like this could be like a full-time thing that I'm creating. It was like, I didn't like being an employee in a grant writing firm. I didn't want that as my future because I really like to travel. And I was like, and I'm doing this thing, didn't call it freelancing, just I got to get to work from home, right? That kind of thing. And okay, and I'm going to keep building my skills. So then I did as I had planned, and I went to Brussels, once again, moving a lot, to do my master's in 2008 to 2009. And I had a wonderful time. And I kept doing that freelancing on the side with my original boss, right? Which was really cool. So it was more just kind of like working as a sub and doing that. So it was really, really fun, though. I really enjoyed it. I didn't really have to go through the work of getting all the clients at that point in time. Although whenever I was out, especially in Brussels, being a very international community that I mentioned grant writing, they're like internship, internship, internship. Like everyone was throwing something at me, which was fantastic. And that's when I found like I can go anywhere. Even in Kuwait, I actually did write a grant there and got paid for it. Because they found out I was writing grants. So I was able to fly to Qatar and I was able to write a grant there for education and they paid for the whole thing. So there was like all these kind of side things going on at the same time. And I'm also just saying like all of these things because there wasn't Zoom. I don't even know if Skype was out yet, maybe at that point in time, but it wasn't a norm to like have this kind of thing, right? But it was like a skill that people desired. And if you knew about it, you knew about it. And it was very like, wow, that's interesting. So in 2009 to 2011, then I moved to the United Arab Emirates and I freelanced on the side and I was working and I got a job in contracts, writing contracts. So kind of aligned, right? Aligned. So I was writing contracts for private industries. And that was really good money, right? It was really good money and I was still able to keep my freelancing on the side. So really enjoyed that. And then in 2011 to 14, I moved to Guam, where my mom was living here now. And then I got a job actually inside a nonprofit. So I worked with a lot of nonprofits, never really, I had my stint in Indonesia, that sort of thing. But then I was working as a lead grant writer and a grant manager inside a nonprofit. And I was also the acting executive director when they were off island. So had more experience and really just like focusing on one organization and building it up and seeing all the ins and outs in grant management with like multi millions of dollars in federal grants and so on and so forth that I would write and secure, and then I would manage them. So then in 2014 so 11 years ago, is when I actually left that nonprofit and opened up my own grant writing business and started as a freelancer, more like as a full-time freelancer with an agency. So in 2015 to 2018, I quickly built up my business. I hired grant writing support, and we did more than just grants. We also did fundraising support, social media, nonprofit event support. You can see me in the picture there with Vanessa Williams, if you know who that is. We brought her out to Guam to support an event and all of that type of work. So I would get hired as not even for that job, I actually pitched it. They were hiring an executive director just to do the whole thing with flying her out and doing this gala and this event and all of the things. And I applied as my company and I was able to get that. So it was a really nice thing to be able to look at things a little differently as well. In 2017, I published my best-selling book, The Beginner's Guide to Grant Writing, and started my podcast, The Grant Writing and Funding Podcast, which was the first grant writing podcast in the world. And it's been around. It's like, yeah, we have like over 650,000 downloads, all of the things from Guam. I started it. And then in 2018 to 2020, I took mainly high contract, high figure for grant writing business and developed courses. Right? This is the first iteration of the Grant Professional Mentorship in the Academy. All right, and I know you're like, Holly, get to the point. We're almost there. 20 years is a long time. Let's get through it. So in 2020, I became the president of the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce and scaled my on-demand courses. We all know what happened in 2020. So it was a lot of almost full-time work as the president of this big nonprofit to lead it through the initial COVID era, right? And then, so I had to I had to transition from doing done for you services for my clients, like writing all of the grants. And I had to position it more. Thank you, sweetie. My daughter's so great. She's bringing me some tea. And then I had to position it more as I need on-demand courses to be selling because I am focusing so much on helping my community in a different way right now that I needed to have not that dollar per hour work, right? So I was like, okay, let's go. We're not just going to do the regular services that I've always done as a freelancer or my business, but we need to create more. And I already had been tooling around with different things, but it was time to scale. And then I continued to run these in different iterations, 6-week trainings, 8-week trainings, on-demand course, all of the things. And then 2023 to 2025 was really when the shifts happened. And instead of having all of these separate on-demand courses, I put them into direct programs and made them make sense. And I scaled up the Freelance Academy and the Grant Professional Mentorship, where now just over the last couple of years, our students have secured over $250 million in grant funding and made $7.4 million in their grant writing businesses. Amazing. And we are on track. Our vision is by 2030 to get to $1 billion in grant funding and 25 to $30 million made in grant writing businesses for our students. So we definitely have a mission to scale this up because we can. We can. All right. We can definitely get there. I have a vision. Like I said, there's a light. There's a light here. In 2025, I continue to scale this program But I did want to just mention here, I'm relaunching my grant writing agency. I relaunched it in 2025. Why? You're like, Holly, wait, 2025 is like crazy. And like a lot of agencies are shutting down, or there's some that are shutting down. Why would you reopen your agency when you clearly don't need to, and you have these online programs and all of the things? The reason why is because people really started reaching out to me in my community, and they really needed my help. And that's why I'm here to tell you today, like, nonprofits and organizations need you now more than ever. Even if you're doing less grant writing, but you're doing more consultation and just keeping up with everything, that has value. Okay. So I said, yeah, we'll relaunch it. We have systems, we have the things. So yes, here we are. We're writing grants again. All right. So let me tell you the moral of the story. All right. I say this to say, and I hope you enjoyed my history, but I say this to say, no grant writer's journey is ever linear. Everyone falls into grant writing, right? Everyone falls into grant writing. So nonprofits' journeys are rarely linear as well. That was weird. Like my picture here is like on my head there. Okay, nonprofit journeys are rarely linear as well. There's ups and downs or things going on. And what I had kind of alluded to this before is we have SWOTs, right, that we like to do with our clients. So if you're a grant writer or you work in a nonprofit, you know what a SWOT analysis is, and that's you look at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And there's a T for a reason. Like, and the strengths and the weaknesses are the internal things in a nonprofit, right? Where the opportunities and the threats are the external things. So COVID and 2025 grant federal admin changes have been external T's, threats for grant writers and nonprofits. And I'm just keeping this like the facts, right? Like huge, like a lot of people actually during COVID, nonprofits actually got a lot more grant funding. During the federal administration changes, a lot of organizations have been cut funding, but even in COVID, a lot of nonprofits got cut funding as well, right? Because the new priorities, like a lot of foundations were like, oh, we want to, instead of funding performing arts right now, we want to shift right now and put money towards online education, health industry, all of that, like the major needs that they were seeing, right? And even during this administration time, you'll see a lot of the federal pauses, those kind of things. Now we're seeing more federal grants come out, which is a great thing. But even organizations, we're seeing some organizations and foundations, I should say, foundations, funding sources came to nonprofits and they said, hey, we know you're in a bind right now. We're just going to give you, more money. Or we're going to take that restricted funding we gave you and we're going to make it unrestricted. So we're also seeing like the pros and cons with all of this. But even if it's a pro or con, it's a variable that we didn't actually kind of plan for. So it can fall in that threat category just because it's the unknown and it's kind of like what's going to happen, right? So I'm saying like the threat is more of a neutral thing at this point in time, but it's in a way, but there's variables. Okay. So the other thing is grants are a part of the economy, especially in the United States. So they aren't going anywhere, but they don't have to be the end all or the be all as well. So I also want you to think about like, if you're thinking about being a grant writer or you already are, what was your journey and what are all the skills? Like you saw the things that I kind of brought to the table was like, okay, I've worked inside nonprofits. I've led nonprofits as acting ED, as a board president, all of the different angles and sides. It's not just all grant writing. There's a lot of different skills and abilities that I bring, and even getting into like fundraising, events, like all the things, right? Now, I want you to think about your experiences too as we go through this presentation and talk about funding sources. But first, I want to talk about some thoughts. So thought issues, right? Here can be two thoughts that you may be having, and we need to break these down before I give you strategy. This is actually a strategy to break them down too. But before I give you like my 3 points, I'm gonna get to the point. I'm going to get there. Don't worry. We need to break these down first. Two thoughts you may be having, maybe one of these, maybe both. Nonprofits aren't hiring grant writers right now, maybe just because you're seeing the T, the threats, right? Even if you're seeing like positive things, but negative things, but it's all over and it's kind of like unsure. And there's just like, right, there's this uncertainty that you're feeling. And the other thought you can be having, and this is one I think grant writers always have, somewhere embedded in them is grant wins are the main measure of success. And they may even say, but that's not really true. I know that's not true. And they try to talk themselves out of it for a second. But somewhere deep, there's a seed. There's a seed there, right? All right. So let's look at how these issues show up, right? With thoughts. So when you have this thought, what happens is, so either of these thoughts, you stop learning the skill of grant writing. These beliefs stop you from learning a proven skill that has helped and is helping today organizations get crucial funding. You either think nonprofits don't want to hire you or the grant writing is too fickle and you just need tough skin, and that just sounds hard, okay? The other thing is that those thoughts, how they show up is that you forget that grants are more than applications. You forget that grants are more than applications. You just read the headlines of certain grant freezes and think that a grant writer is not attractive any longer. You only gauge success with your clients on the grant wins, not on the development of products that you deliver. And we're going to break this down more. You stop marketing. If you're a freelancer, you stop reaching out to organizations. If you don't think nonprofits are hiring right now, you have that thought in your brain. And maybe it comes with validity. I also don't want to dismiss it. Maybe you have had clients that have been around for a long time, but this year they cut you because of federal funding that didn't show up earlier. Maybe there's some, things going on. So you're like, but then you're making it a fact and a truth instead of just like, that may be happening to some clients, but not all clients. We can't blanket that at all. And I'm going to show you why. So if you don't think nonprofits are hiring, or if you are a staff grant writer, you don't apply anywhere and you stay at a possible toxic job. That's what's going to happen. When you think that the grant win is the main measure of success, you also stop marketing as it becomes too hard to overcome the questions of what is your ROI? What if the grant doesn't get awarded? Why can't we just use AI? Why do we need you, right? These things are like, oh, I don't even know how to address that. I don't know how to address that in sales calls. I'm going to stop marketing. Okay, the reality is nonprofits and organizations need you now more than ever. You just heard, I relaunched my agency this year. I haven't even gone public with it because I was getting so many people in the door. I'm not even gone public with it. Like I haven't been out there marketing it or anything. It was just people came to me, I reopened it, that was it. But I haven't gone out marketing because I'm like, the need is there. Yeah, yes, but come to me and I'm getting it under my feet and getting it going again, like full on so I can like scale it up real easy. Because I know it's going to be like that, right? Because nonprofits need us more than ever right now. And the second thing is the award of a grant is not the only success. That doesn't gauge all your success at all. But it's hard when we don't level set with our clients or level set with ourselves. And then that is really the only thing you're looking at. Okay. Now let's talk about this. The reality. Nonprofits need you and grants are more than just a win. What happens when you have these thoughts instead of the other thoughts is you start leaning in, right? The term, whatever. You are not just a grant writer, you are a grant strategist. And I've been saying this for years. It wasn't just a 2025 thing. I've been saying this for years. Your time figuring out today's current needs are worth something. You paying attention to all the legislation that's happened so you know what grants are actually going to be funded and what money is going to be available, and you stay on top of that is valuable. In the past, you might have been writing 20 grants a year or whatnot. This year, you might not be writing many grants at all, but don't reduce your retainer because you're doing a lot of other work, right? You're doing that and that takes time. You're attending more webinars because they've redone a lot of the grants. They have different priorities. You're doing more grant research. You're helping with relationships. All of the things that are happening, like you're staying a part of it. Maybe you're learning a new skill so you can help with more funding assets that we're going to talk about today. That is worth a lot of money. To have the know-how to pay attention is worth a lot of money that the executive director literally does not have the bandwidth or the stress level to deal with right now. Okay. Nonprofits are hiring more freelancer grant writers right now. You can still support organizations. So you might be like, ooh, I had a hard time or my job got cut as an in-house staff grant writer. Go freelance. That's what they're hiring right now. They're like, maybe they're a little scared to hire employees right now, but they still need your services. So hiring as a freelancer is actually a lot more attractive. Like I said, I've been having this negotiation since the early 2006 or whenever I started. You saw my journey before I even knew it was a thing, and I got away with it because you can do it. You can do it anywhere. You can write grants anywhere. And when you're not doing all the other job duties as assigned, you can actually win more grants, write more grants, find more grants because you're more focused. So freelance grant writers actually become more experts in what they do. They can actually get more money for organizations, and they can actually charge less than having like a salary. So, and they can have multiple clients, so they can actually earn more. So even though per client may be paying less than a full-time grant writer. Okay. This is great news. You can serve more causes and stay in the funding specialty area. You can also diversify your services. Grants are not just applications. You can repurpose grants, and we're going to talk about that today, for many products that can tap into other funding for nonprofits. This year, we have learned that flexibility in your services is key, okay? Your ability to be curious and to be flexible is key. I want you to have this thought. When the other thought of like, oh, nonprofits are hiring right now, da, 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 da. All the grants when's are my success? That's how I gauge them. Erase that and just be like, my ability to be curious and flexible is key to my success, right? I really want you to think of that. Or if it's, oh, I don't want to learn a new thing. It feels so overwhelming. I just got this one done. No, it's okay. Be curious, be flexible. When you get curious about how you can get clients or organization results, here's what happens. You keep learning. Skills are important to learn. Everything is always evolving anyways. I used to have to print out all the applications, write them up, run to the FedEx, deliver them that way. There's always things that are changing. I used to have to go to DC to the foundation search or the foundation directory office so I could find international grants because they only had those in the books. They didn't have them online. They're already like so old. Like things change rapidly in our world, right? It's okay. No matter what the grass is never greener on the other side. I'll just go back to a staff job, or I'll go back to teaching, or I'll go back to law. Like you can do those things, but you're going to have complaints when you get over there too, right? There's going to be changes when you get over there too, right? No matter where you're at. So if you're happy connecting mission and money, then this is for you. But will you continue to learn? Absolutely. And I know you're a learner because you're watching this. Okay. You get over the hard thought. Overwhelm is real, but learning how to get results and a change of perspective can be freeing. So instead of being like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming and I don't want to learn this new thing, think, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. I get to be home. I get to be on my computer. I get to do it on my timeline. It's not that hard, okay? You get more results when you become curious because you are willing to be open to possibilities. So then your brain starts thinking of solutions because you're like, I'm curious. Instead of nonprofits are hiring right now. That's very closed. That's very like nothing. No, there's no solutions. It's like a finality. And that's not the fact. Remember, that's not the fact. And we've had a lot of hiring this year going on, okay? So what I want you to think about is, well, what if that wasn't true? What if nonprofits are hiring? Maybe not all of them, the ones I talked to, like these ones, but I know a lot of other people are getting contracts. I know other things are going on. Maybe I'm not talking to the right ones. Start to be more curious, right? And that then starts opening up. And then, oh yeah, I do know this other person. I'll reach out to them or whatever, right? That's going to lead to more solutions. Being curious. You develop a face it till you make it paradigm. And I love the face it till you make it paradigm because instead of a fake it till you make it, I've been saying this to a lot, is face it till you make it. So it's like, okay, I might not know how to do everything right now because maybe something is new, but I'm going to saturate myself in it. And all I really need to be is one step ahead of the person. Or even, I know I've worked even for a lot of, organizations that have clients, and they have been, some of the executive directors have been better grant writers than me, but guess what? They still hire me because they're like, because I'm pretty good too, but they still hire me because they're like, I don't have to do that thing. I shouldn't be writing grants. I should be focusing on leading my nonprofit. And then I'm like, cool, like even just being online and being able to be there and be saturated in it and being of value in that way. And sometimes I'm like, I've been asked to do board training, and guess what? I go to an online course and figure out how to do it, and then I do the training. One step ahead is okay. When you're curious about results, you will also sell more services. Why? Because you focus on results. You're curious about the results. How can I get funding for my clients this year? How can I get funding for my nonprofit this year? How can I? I know there's funding out there. Where do I tap into it? So then because you're curious about that instead of like, there's nothing there, right? You're more curious, you're open, so you're going to look at solutions. So after being a grant writer for 2 decades, and you heard my long-winded experience, I've discovered grant writing is a skill that is always in demand, even in 2025. Yes, even in 2025. Grant writing is a skill anyone can learn. Grant writing is the most robust understanding of the programs to understand programs in a nonprofit. Like when you know how to write a grant, you know how to understand any project in a nonprofit. Grant writing or an organization. And grant writing can be purposed for other funding assets. So what about 2025, Holly? Okay, let's get spicy. This money that you're seeing right here is just the last 2 years, not even the full 2 years, in just my programs. Just a few hundred people. Just a few hundred people. There's thousands and thousands of grant writers out there. This is just a few hundred people, but it gives us a good determination, a good snapshot of what's going on when we have a few hundred people, right? Yes, let's be real. The grants, because there was a lot of pauses, because there was a lot of confusion in the beginning of the year, we're seeing a lot more wins come out right now, and especially Q3. But yeah, that held up a lot of the grant wins in our program. So this is just for my programs. In 2024, there was $138 million that our clients secured, right? In 2025, just year to date, 44 million. That's a big difference. That's a big difference. So I wanted you to see that. That's like a quarter of it, something like that, third, something, right? Still winning grants, 44 million is pretty good though, right? In less than a year, it's still pretty good. But let's look what makes, I analyzed this and I thought, because we pull up all the data, we use Airtable, amazing for our program, so we can really analyze all of the results and the things going on. What I realized though, and this is what's amazing, is in 2024, the money that the grant writers, freelance grant writers made in their businesses though, with contracts sold, like getting clients and everything, was over 4.1 million. Year to date, we're already at 3.2 million, almost $3.3 million. So we will definitely end the year with more money in grant writing businesses made in people's actual businesses this year than last year, even though they have secured way fewer grants. So I wanted to show that for you because you're like, but they're not, especially if you have that thought, nonprofits aren't hiring. Grants are the only measure of success. Like the grant one is the only measure of success. No, people in our program are still selling their services, actually more vibrant than last year. And guess what? They've secured less money. But that's because they're doing things like strategy. They're doing things like other types of funding assets. They're doing things like more about research and finding new grants. And yeah, that might take a little bit longer, but we're going to work with it because we're going to go into federal or foundation grants now from federal. Like they're doing the work still, and they're still having really good success with their clients because their clients are keeping them, they're hiring them, they keep bringing them on, even though they secure less money. So this really disrupts both of those thoughts from the beginning with data from people this time, like real-time data from freelance grant writers. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show you, and I grabbed this from usaspending.gov, you can go there and look at it yourself, is yes, we did have a pause in the grants for this year, but look at, we actually have, this is just obligated funds per fiscal year, obligated federal, this is all federal grants only, are still here. We still have the grants. They've been drawn down. Have they been available? Not necessarily, but they are obligated. So this is a little bit, there's a lot of variables out there, but it is to say that they're still obligated. There's still money that is there, right? So we are watching this, and it still is higher than pre-COVID times. So I also want to disrupt that there's no grants available. And yes, like I said, there's some things there. It's not just like, oh, so easy right now, but we are seeing more rollout. We're seeing the different things happen. Okay. All right, let's get into our strategies finally. I hope that was helpful. I hope everything to this point, because we have to kind of break all this down. All right. And these strategies are going to be pretty quick. So bear with me because they're important. Strategy one, the basis for all of this, though, is the master grant template. When I want to talk about funding assets today, I've got to talk about a master grant template. You need the program design. So what is a master grant template, right? Let's talk about it. First, you need to do the deep work. Build out 1 to 3 priority areas with your client or the organization you work at. Not more than that. Look at going, okay, in the next 12 months, what are the 1 to 3 priority areas that you want funding in? Let's get clear, let's get focused. What this does is when you can like with a nonprofit down like that, it stops them from mission drifting and it aligns the board of directors. Because believe you me, every single executive director I've ever known is a visionary. And about 90% of those visionaries are like not on the ground. And what I mean by that is they've got this idea, that idea, they're passionate, and that's why they hire them because but we need to kind of ground them, and that's our job. I really feel like that's our job as a grant writer, is to be like, let me ground you and like, let's get focused so then we can like really focus on the 1 to 3 priorities over the next 12 months. And yes, you can have all of those other amazing ideas that we will put on the back burner. Let's focus on getting this funding first. Okay. That helps also get clarity and it creates clear communication for the organization. Some people, if you look at a nonprofit and you're like, I don't even know everything they do because they're like doing different things all the time. I think they work with youth, but it's like all over the place. And they're always asking for funding and all these different things and these tiny things and da da da. And it gets a little bit like muted, right? Where some organizations, you're like, I know exactly what they do. They do this, and this is what they ask for funding for. And it's very, very clear, right? And it's almost like a business, right? When you start a business, I always say, like, in our programs, like, get your bills offer, like, get it really clear, like, start selling your grant writing services and figure out, just offer a couple of things. Know the one thing that you're selling, and then what is, get that done really, really well so it books out all your bills, then take on something else. Because if you're trying to do it all, and I say this just experience of doing it wrong, then your time, it's going to take you longer to really get set up and get sustainable because your energy and your time and everything is scattered and your systems are all over the place, right? Same with a nonprofit. You really want to get their systems. You really want to rope them in. And that helps with communicating to their donors, their sponsors, or funders, et cetera, when they're also clear on what they're actually doing. So this focus creates quick financial growth because of that concept. It's like the 80-20 rule in a way, right? Okay, so what is a master grant template? And I do have this quick QR code here for you because we have a template. If you want to just download our master grant template, you can go for it. Just click on this QR code. And we also have a private podcast that goes along with it. So I'm not going to tell you how to write a master grant template in this training. This is not what this training is about, but I do need to mention it because it's going to help you with your funding assets. So it will include your research, your goals, your objectives, timeline, budget, about the organization, all of those things. And then it's like those 3 priority areas, right? But you're basically, when you find out about an organization, you're asking all these questions so you can create this template or like a boilerplate. And then that helps you, like we were doing this way before AI. So then like when you're writing grant applications come up, you're like copying and pasting and you have all your resources and all of the things. So it's kind of like we're like the AI thought of that, right? Where you can easily grab things and save time. And you can definitely utilize AI with the master grant template because then it's something you wrote as a human that you understand and you develop this program. Okay. So that's a master grant template. And you can see like how important having that information is to move to the second strategy. Strategy number 2 is I want you to think about results for your clients. What can you realistically do that makes sense? So let's address the elephant in the room. Again, we're addressing a lot of elephants today, or it's the same one really. We're like, hello. So, all right, grants, especially federal in 2025, like we've been saying, have been undergoing a lot of changes. So if you had a 12-month retainer with some clients that you had in when we've been dealing with this with our students a lot, we've been helping them address this and reset these contracts. That you had a contract, a 12-month contract that you signed in December 2024, and you had already done a grant calendar and all of the things, and then it was all for federal grants, and then they got paused. So guess what happened? Your clients might have been like, okay, see you later, right? Instead of you role resetting like your contract, because now we should it probably doesn't look the same, the calendar, right? And if you're writing foundation grants, it may be the same, but maybe not, because there were some changes in that too, right? So things are changing right now with priorities, but funding is still out there. I do want to say funding is still out there, but you might need to reset those contracts. So think about, and you still want to get your clients results, right? You still want to get them results, especially if they're still paying you. You're like, okay, I got to do some work. So what I want you to first do is think about who your who is. Who do you work with, right? What type of organization, all of the things. What, if they're a small organization, they're not going to be going after federal grants right now anyways, right? So you might be stressing for no reason. If they are a large organization, then who is the who? Then maybe we need to find some other opportunities. What makes sense of other skills you can or have learned to help them get money this year? So you saw my whole journey that I spent forever talking about, but it was to a point of I can now bring in other skills. In our Freelance Grant Writer Academy in the spring of 2025, guess what we were doing? We were teaching people how to do corporate solicitation packages for their clients, because we're like, okay, let's get you some more results for your clients. Maybe you're not writing grants right now. Maybe it's hard to find the ones that they're taken off your calendar. Let's do some more funding assets for your clients. Let's do some more deliverables. Let's give them ways to get more money in their organization. And I can help you because I've done all these things in the past, right? So let's bring those to the forefront. Also think about, where have they gotten funding? Has it been through sponsors? Has it been through donors? Has it been through members? Has it been all of the things? What else can you help with your writing skills leverage that may not be grants, right? But remember, we can leverage the master grant template because now you know everything about their programs. You know the budget, you have done all the research, and you have all the needs, and you have testimonials, and you have all of the things. Oh my gosh, we can repurpose that into something for their fundraiser campaign, into a fundraiser appeal letter, right? All of that. How can we tie it to other ways that they're getting funding? So I'm not saying you have to go out there and do events. I'm saying, how can you leverage your writing skills and your master grant template to provide resources or copy for other things that they're doing that then will help everything stay on track? So what's a low lift for your writing? Okay. You can still be focused and niched. You don't have to be like, oh my God, now I have to learn everything, Holly. No, no. You can still serve a cause area. You can still serve a type of nonprofit, based on operation budgets. You can still serve a certain geographic area if you want. Or maybe you can just you can only select certain funding assets that you want to do. That's absolutely fine, okay? All right, let's finally get to it. What are funding assets, though, Holly? You keep dropping this word. And we're already 40 minutes into the webinar. Okay, well, here's what they are. Okay, we want to repurpose your master grant template into funding assets because you thought about other ways potentially. Let's lean into that more. We're going to figure out, another typo, what to learn or what you want to know. Okay, funding assets allow you to have flexibility in the changing tides with funding. Something's hot right now. It's donors. Let's go there, right? How can I repurpose my master grant application into newsletters for donors right now? How can I still give assets to the nonprofit that will help them get funding? Even if it's not grants, how can I leverage the master grant template so it keeps the nonprofit focused on what they're actually wanting funding for, that 1 to 3 programs. And now we can use some of this data. We can turn this into a donor appeal letter. We can turn it into newsletters every month, social media copy, etc. When you raise funding for the same 1 to 3 priority areas, a nonprofit also communicates consistently and clearly. People know what they're raising money for. They know what they're doing. It's consistent. It's not like, oh, we're doing this secret little grant over here, but over here we're doing fundraising for this other thing, and over here we're doing donors for this other money, and it's just kind of No, let's focus on the 1 to 3 programs and let's fund them no matter what stream of income. That's what I want you to think about. The opportunity to repurpose your master grant templates into other assets. Okay, the other assets. This is what they allow. And it also takes the pressure off of you for only grant funding. And that goes back to that initial thought of writing grants, the only way to gauge success is winning grants. No, look at me. Even if I said write a master grant application and then you just did other funding assets and no grants this year, you could still get funding because you're repurposing. Because the grant is the best way, remember, to understand the design, to understand the programs better than if you said, oh, just write a fundraising appeal letter, but I'm going to talk through what we want money for. It's not robust enough. A master grant template is very robust. It's going to give you the information you need to communicate across any platform, across any way, right? It also gives you just the ability to get more funding results for your clients right now when you turn your master grant application into other funding assets and other support for them. Now you can get more money outside of grants. And it's also going to overcome objections during the next year. In your sales calls, they're like, not only grants, and you're like, no, I also can have funding assets. We can look and see what other things we can do. But I do want you to specify what you will do and not just keep them open to anything and everything and not know how to measure them. So we're going to talk about that. Make sure you stay. Make sure you stay so you hear this. So what are different types of assets? And I'm not by all means saying you need to figure out all of these or do them all. I'm not. I'm saying look at some of these. Maybe add 1 or 2 in that you don't do. Maybe add 1 or 2 in that could be a possibility. Even if you don't end up doing it in your contract or your retainer this year, if you do a 12-month retainer with someone, even if you don't end up doing it, let's keep it open in case something happens again. And what can that do? It can help overcome any objections in sales calls. Yeah, that happens. No worries. We still got you. We still got you. So by no means list out all these things and I can do any of them. I want you to think about what makes most sense for your experience, for your desire, all of the things, and maybe just pick a couple of these that you can do outside of your regular scope of work, right? So your normal scope of work is obviously grants, right? So obviously you need to have that there still too, right? Let's still do the grant writing. Grant prospecting is a very common thing that you're going to be doing as well. A grant calendar is a common thing. Sometimes people even do like the nonprofit wellness audit, which helps people get grant ready. Corporate solicitation package could be something you add that you've never done before. And a master grant template you should always do as well. A letter of inquiry is a common thing you do. So out of this whole list here, maybe the new thing would be, well, maybe you don't do a master grant template. That could be a new thing you add. But how could you repurpose that? Maybe it's the corporate solicitation package. And then let's look at the other side. These are all things that your master grant template could be repurposed into. Copy for newsletters or social media post copy. You don't have to be the designer. You don't have to be the scheduler. You could be, but that would add money to your proposal. But you could definitely give them the copy. Think about your grant research that you do in a master grant template. You're going to do so much research that you're going to have statistics, reports, all of that. Those are wonderful to turn into infographics, right? Those are wonderful to put inside little bullet points in your newsletter, a little splash thing. Like it just communicates what you're doing and what you want to do. Fundraising appeal letter, crowdfunding campaign, Giving Tuesday campaign, grant reports, press releases, presentations or slide decks, and that could just be the copy. You don't have to be doing all the design work. A nonprofit strategic planning, right? So all of these things, like a lot of them, well, the nonprofit strategic planning can't be necessarily, but all of these other things can really be repurposed from your master grant template. And there's way more things than this, but just think like, I already have the copy. How can I repurpose that into something else, like into something else, right? That could also raise money. So what do you already have experience in funding? What are you curious about? What can you learn? And where have they gotten funding before? That's also an important thing to kind of bring back up, just to be like, okay, they also get, money from donors, then I could definitely add in newsletter support, social media support, that sort of thing to retain their funders, because a lot of times they don't actually have newsletters and they don't retain them, that sort of thing, right? Don't feel like you need to learn it all or do it all. Like all of those things I mentioned, like don't do that all, but like figure out like what feels good for you that you would want to include, especially that connects with your who. Find some that make sense for your who to interweave into your grant writing services. And you can think of these like credits that are weighted. So hang in here with me for a second. Hang in here with me. All right. One way, actually, before I show you the screen, one simple way you could do it is a lot of people who have retainers, what they do is they'll say something like, we write 12 to 15 grants per year, we meet monthly, we will do a grant prospecting report, we'll do a master grant template, right? And this is over 12 months, these are the things we'll do. So right now you might say, well, you could keep everything the same, except you could change from 12 to 15 grants. You could say 12 to 15 funding assets, right? And then that means, well, if some of those are grants, great. But if we can't fit all those for grants right now, we can add some other things. See, that's as flexible as it needs to be. But I do want you to identify what those other things would be and how you would weight them so you're not burning and spending way more time and not really getting paid for it because it's taking you a lot longer, right? So I need you to think about like, what does that mean? Okay, so some of it you're just gonna have to learn, like how to, like just when you start writing grants, it's gonna be a little slower in the beginning, but then it'll speed up with systems. But especially if some of these are repurposable abilities, there's going to be economies of scale where you start speeding up, just like when you write more than one grant. Okay. What you can do is figure out what is the main quantity kind of reach that you're looking for. Like I'm going to try to write at least 10 foundation grants. And see how I separate it too. I don't just say grants. Foundation grant, state grant, federal grant. Do separate those. Because they take different time, so I'm going to give them different credits because they have different weight, and because they take a different amount of time, they have a different cost. Now, I've kind of made the federal grants blank here because I do think that unless you know for sure you're going to work with a client with a lot of fluidity that is at a certain annual operating budget, you're not always going to offer federal grants. A lot of you work with startup pups, you work with organizations that are just getting their first foundation grants, maybe some state grants. I don't think it's very advantageous for you to drop the federal grants in there just because they'll take so many more of your credits. But you could, and you could just be like, okay, for a second. But the basic thing is if you would say this is based on $150 an hour. So if you were looking at hourly prices, and that would include your taxes, all of the things, but if you were saying, okay, 10 times 150, right? 10 hours times 150 times 10 is 15,000, etc. So these are like, that's how we did the math for these. So you can see each thing is weighted a little different within a certain number of credits. So you could say we're going to do 32 to 34 credits this year for over the 12 months, and it could be a combination of these things. So obviously, if you wrote 2 state grants, you would write fewer foundation grants, or you would take up the corporate solicitation. So you're not guaranteeing that we're going to do all of this stuff unless a nonprofit's like, no, I definitely want that, and I definitely want those to be used as my credits. But you could keep it a little more fluid to say, like, this is an idea of like, once we do more research for you, what this would look like, right? So then you have the opportunity to be a little bit more fluid. So here it would be about 4,187. It's a weird number. So you could just round it down to 4,000 or round it up to 42 if you were to do all of these things. But maybe they'll use less credit, so it wouldn't be as much as well. So you could also like, let's do like, but I would say make it a baseline so you know what your baseline retainer pay would be. So this is a way of keeping a little fluid and keeping the opportunity to get more results. And you can see I didn't put all the funding assets even in here, but you would put the ones that you want to do. Like I would put these are the ones that I want to do, right? And then I would only offer these ones. I'm not going to offer everything else from that list because I don't want to do all the things. But with my clients, I know that these assets are going to get them the most funding, and I can lean into this year. So whether or not we're going to do them all, we're going to do, we have the opportunity, if we find 15 foundation grants and that's what we want to go after, then we may not do a corporate solicitation package. So we are keeping the flexibility here as well. Okay. All right. This case study, a client I have in my agency this year is on a 12-month retainer. And so far, we've done a membership tiered design for funding, like actual like membership, right? Where you can have a student membership, a corporate membership, that sort of thing. And then they get like benefits to being a member, and then that gets monthly cash flow. We also have a corporate solicitation for annual sponsors. a grant prospecting calendar, a master grant template, and then a mixture of grants. Originally, when we signed on, we were like, oh, in February, we were like, okay, no, she was like, no federal grants this year. But then when things started to roll out, she said, what kind of assets do we have left? Can we do a federal grant? I was like, yep, we still have assets. So we can definitely roll some of those into federal grants. So see how that's more fluid instead of like, now we got to redo the retainer or whatnot, right? Okay, so let's recap real quick. Why you think nonprofits aren't hiring grants right now? We kind of understood that and we got rid of that thought. Now, we also talked about the 3 strategies for a funding asset. Creating a master grant application template is key. So then you have the copy to repurpose into other things. Think about results for your clients and be curious and open, and then develop your funding assets and figure out the weight. Like, obviously, you might have a different hourly thing. You don't have to look at mine and say, I have to make this many credits and this much time and blah, blah, blah. Like, use your experience and bring it to the table to figure out what you weight things at and all of the things, right? But that's how you can come up with a system to weight the funding asset. So it's a little bit more easy. If they're like, I want to do this, and then you're like, oh my God, how do I figure that out? You already have it predetermined, so you know. Okay. And we're also going to talk about our free grant writing and freelance resources. Please do take this QR code. We have our podcast, as I mentioned, and the swag bag. Definitely grab that. We also have an upcoming free training on October 14th. Earn an extra 10K in 90 days writing grants at home. So make sure you register for that free training and check out all of our other free resources. Thank you again so much for attending this training. I hope you got so much out of it. I hope more than anything, it opened up your curiosity and gave you hope for this year. And like, oh my gosh, people are getting paid. People are getting clients. People are getting grants. People are like developing things. Clients are, having their needs filled, and nonprofits are able to still meet their mission, and organizations are, because people like us are thinking outside of the box, because people like us are coming to trainings like this, because people like us are still going through, and our form of advocacy is helping people get funding, right? For the causes that are happening, no matter what's happening in the world, those causes are still happening, and we're still there to, just like I was in Indonesia, meet that money to mission. All right, everyone, thank you again. I'm Holly Rustick, and thank you for letting me be a part of this wonderful event.